Hey everyone, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy the audiobooks, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support us further, consider becoming a Patreon member. As a member, you'll gain the ability to request the next part of a novel audiobook I've uploaded, depending on your Patreon tier.
All right, come at me with all you have, Silva said. He held a tree branch in his hand to serve as his weapon. Faye nodded and took her stance. Her sword was immediately covered in flames, and then she dashed at Silva. I can sense a lot of mana from her, but I feel that even Leah has a better flow than her, Silva thought. He didn't feel too much pressure, stepping forward and parrying her attack cleanly. He didn't stop there. He moved in, tripping her, and she fell face flat on the ground. You focus so much on your sword that you don't watch the rest of your body, and that's a bad habit. You have to be cautious of your entire body. That's the first stage. After being cautious of your body, you have to take it a step further and be cautious about your surroundings. He stretched out his hand and helped her get up. When you get through that as well, you finally enter the next stage, being cautious of your enemy and watching their every move. If you do that well, you can even predict their movements before they make them. If you practice to this level, you can reach a whole new stage, and that is being able to create your own space. Silva took his stance and then closed his eyes. He extended his senses throughout his body, then to his surroundings, and finally to his opponent. He merged all of them to create a space around him. With this space, you can monitor your entire environment and everything that happens. Now, attack me, Silva said with his eyes closed. Faye charged at him again, trying to aim for his blind spot since his eyes were closed. But as soon as her sword got close to him, he moved out of the way. He then countered and placed his sword against her neck. That's how you do it. Silva opened his eyes. This should be enough for now. We'll continue another time, he said and left. Faye watched his back, filled with conflicting thoughts. I came here to simply get closer to him for the sake of father and the family. I didn't really think I'd learn something this important from him. Now I am eager for what our next lesson will hold, but before then, I have to master what he showed me now. When the sun rose, the convoy continued their journey to the city. It didn't take more than a few hours before they finally arrived at the city gates. As soon as the guards spotted their crest, they informed the Duke about their arrival, and they were led to the estate where they would stay. Inside the house that they were given, they all set their things down and met in the living room. Ray and Faye sat beside their father, while Silva sat opposite him. All right, Silva, the main event will start tonight. You have all day to do whatever you want. I advise that you three go through the city and have some fun for the time being, the Baron said. Father, why do we need him to tag along? We can handle things just fine, Ray said. Don't be stubborn, boy. He is here to guard us, and he's stronger than anyone we brought. There is no one more suitable to guard you than him, the Baron said. Baron, what about you? If I leave with both of them, who will guard you? Silva asked. You don't have to worry about that. We are in the private estate of the Duke, under his protection. You'd have to be stupid to attempt anything here, the Baron spoke with certainty. Silva didn't push more than that, so he left the manor with the siblings. Let's head to the market, they have a lot of nice things there, Faye said. I'd rather go to where the guards of the Duke train and watch, Ray said. You can't be serious, Ray. Tell him, Silva, she said. Why the hell are you bringing him into this? Ray asked. Master Ray, the Baron asked that you both have fun. We have to find an activity that both of you will at least be happy doing. And as a gentleman, it is advisable that you let the lady pick, Silva said. You heard him, right? Faye said. I don't care. He can simp all he wants. I'm going to the training grounds. You two can go wherever, Ray said and tried to leave, but Silva grabbed his shoulder. Ray turned around, pissed. He was about to lash out, but when he looked into Silva's eyes, he was stricken with fear. We will go where Lady Faye chooses. Do you understand, or should I drag you along? Silva threatened, his voice like a demon from hell. Ray couldn't resist at all. He slowly nodded his head and followed them. They walked through the market, buying a lot of stuff from simple jewelry to snacks and food. They came across a store, and a pendant there caught Faye's eyes. She wanted it, but when she looked at the price tag and what she had left, she couldn't afford it, even with her brother's help. They had spent all their funds purchasing other things, and she was scared that if she left to ask her dad, it wouldn't be there when she got back. "I'll buy it for you, so don't worry," Silva said. He saw the longing in her eyes and decided to help out. He purchased the pendant and handed it to her. She took it and held it close to her heart. "I promise to pay you back," she said. "No need for that, it's a gift from me," Silva said, flashing a smile. Ray, who had been waiting for them, could finally leave as Silva started walking as well, his face seriously distorted in anger. It seemed that Silva didn't know what he did back there, but that is a story for another time. Night came, and it was finally time for the ceremony to start. It kicked off with a party, where the nobles talked and drank as much as they wanted for some time. Finally, the Duke arrived at the hall, and he was announced. Silva, who had been in a corner ever since they arrived, looked up to see the Duke, his biological father. The Duke walked in with 2 children by his side, his son and his daughter, their heads held high as pride oozed from them. So I would have been one of the pompous brats if he had kept me, Silva thought. After that, he didn't pay heed to them and just got some food to eat. No one else was eating at that point, so the Duke noticed Silva. He turned his head a little to look at Silva, but the darkness of the corner didn't allow him to see his face properly. The Duke went up and took the highest seat, his children also sat beside him. He took a glass of wine and held it up. "I welcome all of you to this occasion. It is to celebrate the discovery of an A-rank labyrinth and to award the men that found it. This will serve as another opportunity to strengthen the kingdom of Vermilion, and as a town under my jurisdiction, it brings me great honor as well. Baron Ezra, please step forward," the Duke said and finally dropped his glass. The Baron looked over at Silva, signaling him to follow. Silva let out a sigh and followed the Baron closely behind. When the nobles saw the kid following, they started asking questions as to who Silva was. The Baron didn't even come out with his own children, yet he brought this child. When the Duke saw Silva, he raised his brow. He gazed at Silva as though he was trying to pierce through Silva's soul. But Silva was not disturbed, he had layers upon layers of mental and soul protection. He knew things like this would happen, and so he did well to invest in certain skills and spells. "Seems Dad over there can't recognize me. Well, he didn't even look at me for more than 5 seconds before declaring me worthless. Normally, I shouldn't care about this, but my pride as a human and as a dragon is biting at me, and I'll never have peace until I see this man breaking down in tears. Still, I'm too weak to oppose him. He is a duke, his strength is extreme. I am very sure that he has evolved as well." Silva and the Baron knelt before the Duke. "Baron Ezra, for your contributions to Vermilion, I, Duke Terran, on behalf of King Charles Vermilion II, raise you to the status of Viscount. You will receive all payments worthy of your status, as well as a 3-year tax exemption." "You may rise," Duke Terran said. The Baron got up and bowed to the Duke. He was about to turn and leave, but then the Duke spoke. "Viscount Ezra, I have heard that there is a rising genius from your town. After seeing this young man with you, I feel inclined to ask," the Duke said. "Your eyesight is indeed great, my lord. This young man is Silva. He is currently acting as my guard, but he is a B-ranked adventurer," the Viscount said. What he said caused a slight uproar in the hall, everyone started saying how unbelievable that was. The Duke raised his hand, and everyone fell silent. He looked at Silva and spoke. "Come forward." Silva did as he was told and took a step forward. "How old are you, child?" the Duke asked. 12, Silva answered, causing another uproar. The Duke silenced them again. "It seems the Viscount is proud of your strength for him to take you as a guard. So then, let's gauge a friendly spar, you versus my son Oliver here. He may be older, but I believe you won't find an issue with that," the Duke said. "No issues, my lord, but I do pray that whatever the outcome, I will not be held accountable," Silva said. The Duke frowned when he heard that. Silva was implying a few things. 1, he was going to beat the hell out of the Duke's son, and 2, he was certain that he would win. "All right, I agree to your terms," the Duke said. The son of the Duke didn't say anything. He simply got up in obedience to his father. As he walked past Silva, the disdain was evident in his eyes. A space was cleared at the center of the hall for the fight. The Duke ordered that the guards hand them swords in order to ensure that no special swords were used. The Duke sat on his seat, expressionless, and raised his hand. Once his hand came down, the match would start. "Why do I have to touch a vermin like yourself, adventurer scum?" Oliver said to Silva. He was obviously pissed that he had to spar with this peasant. "I hope you use your blade as fast as you run your mouth." "It would be a shame if you lose here," Silva said. His words were targeted to hurt, and they did just that. Oliver's face distorted in rage as soon as he heard that. The Duke dropped his hand, and Oliver charged immediately. "I'll kill you, commoner scum," he yelled. "Show me how strong you are, brother." Oliver stabbed at Silva. Silva took one step back, just barely getting out of the reach of the sword. Then he used his sword to tip Oliver's sword aside and stepped in for a clean headbutt. Oliver's head shot back, and he nearly went unconscious, but he remained awake. No one in the hall had expected Silva to pull off such a move. This was a fight of sword and magic, and so his move was unconventional. "You see, when you live as an adventurer, you pick up certain things," Silva said, then took a stance. Oliver was pissed at what had just happened. He immediately decided not to hold back at all. "I'll show you the power of a noble, you piece of shit." Oliver yelled out, his blade engulfed in flames. He held his flame-covered blade with pride and then slashed at Silva, releasing a powerful flame arc. "This is just pitiful," Silva said. He made a simple slash motion with his sword, and the flame arc dispersed. "You're weak," Silva said and then charged at Oliver. He wanted to win with a smashing victory, regardless of what troubles it might cause. He was so fast that Oliver was unable to see him. Silva went for a slash at the neck, ready to cut him down. "Stop." The Duke's voice boomed, and Silva stopped immediately. He didn't know why, but the voice carried a force that stopped him. "Your strength is indeed something else, Silva. My son is considered a prodigy, and here you have defeated him," the Duke said. "Master Oliver must have gone easy on me." "I am undeserving of such praise," Silva said with his head bowed. The Duke frowned because he understood what Silva was doing here. He was insulting him even further. Everyone could see that Oliver didn't hold back, he was simply subdued. After the fight, Silva quickly found a corner to stay in for the rest of the whole event. He had done what they had asked of him. The Viscount had asked that he show off a little, and he was sure that this was enough showing off, no matter how you looked at it. This fight would cause issues for him for sure, but he was ready for what would come. As long as an evolve did not come after him, he was certain he would survive any fight. As he stayed in his corner, an old lady approached him. She held a glass of wine and carried herself in a dignified manner. But one thing was certain when Silva looked at her: she was strong, maybe as much as the Duke, or even more. He could tell that her power was great, but he could not get a good grasp on it. "It is a beautiful night, isn't it?" she asked Silva. "Who are you?" Silva cut to the chase. He could tell she wasn't here to make small talk. "Oh ho, my name is Matilda, but you can call me Grandma," she said with a smile. "Why would I do that?" Silva asked. "Haha, I was just joking. I am the director of the Blacklight Academy. After your performance today, I'd like for you to join my academy," she said. "No, I don't think I want to go," Silva said. "Also, I am only 12. There are still 2 years before I think of school," Silva said. "Well, with your abilities, accepting you early is not an issue. In fact, there are always those we accept early every year. You will be one of them," she said. "Stop speaking like I have accepted to go." "I am not going," Silva refused. "Then we won't let your sister in as well," Matilda said. Immediately she spoke, killing intent seeped out of Silva. He looked at her with a face that said, "Try that and I'll kill you. You're strong, but I doubt even with your strength you can defeat the academy and the city. I also saw how you looked at the Duke. It seems you have some business with him. You can get closer to his children through the academy. I am offering you this now because of my own personal reasons. I have known about you long before you came here, and also your sister. That is why I know she wants to join the academy. If you refuse my offer, then I'll have no choice but to refuse her. Will you stand in the way of her dreams because of your selfish reasons?" Matilda said, walking away. Silva stood there and watched her leave. These were the reasons he ran from politics. A single man can be strong, but not stronger than politics. It was an alliance made of not only the strong, but the wise. It brought the most demonic and evil brands of humans. Even with all your strength, it is impossible to fight against them. Even the strongest men are tied by politics. Silva wanted to go to the academy, but he wanted to do it at his own pace. He knew that his dreams were leading him to the academy, and he would surely go. But still, he wanted to be in control. When the director came up to him, she took away that control and made him move at her pace. The issue was not in going to the academy. The issue lay in the rope that had been set around his neck. Matilda knew that Silva would not budge and that he was a hard nut to crack, so she immediately hit him where it would hurt the most: Leah. If he refused what Matilda said, he would kill Leah's dream, and if Leah ever found out, she would be devastated and might never forgive him. The solution was simple: he had to do what Matilda said. He would just have to go to the academy. It's just a matter of time. Soon, no one will be able to control what I do. For now, I'll keep quiet and slowly build my own army in the shadows. Waiting for the right time to use them, that time will be to complete whatever task Ophelia gave me. And after that, I can do whatever I want. Note from the author. Sorry to put this here, SSS-Ranked Reincarnation has been going for a bit now, and I'd love if you, my readers, could drop a review about the novel. Your reviews help me to make the novel better, so please drop a review for the novel, thanks in advance. The night came to an end, and this was the time for Silva to get active. If anyone wanted to assassinate the Viscount, it would be the night when things were lax due to all the fun they had. Silva got outside the hall before people started leaving, and he created all 10 of his clones. What do you need from us, Original? The clones asked. I need you guys to scan the area and stop any attempt on the life of the Viscount or his family. If things get too far out of hand, you can always contact Fong, he's close to the city waiting. Silva gave his instructions. We understand, the clones said and dispersed. Now that he was done with that, he went back in to meet the Viscount. Sir, the event is over and the Duke has left. I think it is time that we head back, Silva whispered to the Viscount, who was held up in a discussion with some nobles. Sadly, I can't right now, but help Faye and Ray get back to the estate. I'll be safe, this place is under the protection of the Duke, the Viscount said. I'll be okay. Famous last words, Silva thought, but he didn't say anything. He bowed and left. This message is to the clones: I am leaving with the children. You all have to protect the Viscount. You may be strong, but don't let your guard down even for a second, Silva said to the clones telepathically. Your father has some more things to do here. He asked that I escort you to the estate, Silva said to Faye and Ray. Underscore 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 underscore. The three of them walked under the night sky. The gentle, cool breeze pushed against their bodies as they walked the path to the estate. Silva, do you plan on attending the academy? With your abilities and skills, you would get in easily, Faye asked. He may be too much for the academy, honestly, Ray said, looking forward as he spoke. The director was at the event today, and she met me with the offer of joining next year, Silva said. Next year? You're only going to be 13 by then, Ray said in surprise, but then he remembered who he was talking about. This was a guy not bound by common laws. At the very least, I'll be your senior, Ray said. I can't believe we will get to go to the same class. It will be fun with you there, Faye said eagerly. More like dangerous. He's way out of our league. I think only the 4th years will be a match for him, Ray said. You guys give me too much credit, but I'll see when I get there, Silva said. As they walked, he had long noticed 3 shadows following them, but he didn't say or do anything. He kept using only public paths where some people were still awake and walking through. He refused to use any path that was sketchy. For now, he didn't want to fight them, but the people following them started getting ahead of themselves and were approaching. So Silva ordered 3 clones to handle the issue, and the people following them vanished. Underscore 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 underscore. The next day was the day they were to leave, but before they could go, the Duke arrived at the manor. He was followed by several guards and his daughter. As soon as the Viscount and the others saw him, they all bowed to him. Raise your heads. I just wanted to see you before you left as a courtesy. I am your host, and it would be bad if I can't do this much, Duke Terran said. You have done more than enough for us, my lord. I do not deserve more, the Viscount said. The Duke turned his attention to Silva. He frowned as soon as their eyes met. Something about this child was throwing him off. Aside from the absurd strength this child had, there was something about him that was offsetting. Was it the hair color that resembled that of his wife? What could it be that was ticking him off so much? The Duke decided to keep those thoughts for another time. This was not important for now. Silva, I heard that you will be attending the academy next year. I look forward to what exploits you will carry out when you are there, the Duke said. Silva bowed to him but didn't say anything. After the small discussion, the Duke allowed them to leave. The Viscount and his family, along with Silva and their guards, got into their carriages and left the estate. The Duke looked at the carriages leaving. He snapped his finger, and a guard came close to him. Research that Silva. Gather every bit of information about him, his family, his strengths, all the details about him, the Duke ordered. Inside the carriage, Silva was also deep in thought. The Duke will certainly ask for my information. This may become an issue, actually. I don't have the means to hide things from him. I'm not smart enough to outsmart the intelligence unit of the Duke. System, is there a way, any skill that I can use that will help me? Alter Ego, 50,000 SP, create a secondary mind that possesses the same intelligence as you. This skill was very expensive, but when Silva read the description, he knew that it was worth it. And there was also one other thing. If he bought this skill, he would have 10 minds that were all 10 times more intelligent than him. That would seriously up his planning and everything else. His battle sense and everything would be out of this world. Purchase the skill. As soon as he bought this skill, he felt his mind split into 11 parts, but his original mind stayed the same. Whoa, this is great, one mind spoke. Yeah, having this many minds will allow us to work better, another mind said. You all should calm down and let OG mind talk, he needs to address us, another mind spoke. Silva stayed in bed for a full day after returning from the city. He wanted to regain his strength as well as understand his new skill. The 10 minds that he had were all 10 times as intelligent as his original, and so he had to find a way to use this. He gave charge of his body and all its functions to 3 minds. They would handle his movements and every body function. He gave his thinking and senses to another 3, they would take care of his ideas and observation. Another 3 would handle his magic, whatever had to do with magic would be in their hands. And finally, the last one was given a special job. He was in charge of overseeing the jobs of the other minds and ensuring that they produced good results. He was tagged Mind 1, while the original mind was called OG Mind. OG Mind just had to be there, getting information from the other minds. His decision was the final and greatest. Knock knock. Silva, it's me, Leah. Silva heard Leah's voice. He hadn't seen her since he got back. He didn't really ask about her, since he knew she was fine. He got up from the bed, stretched his body a bit, and then went to the door. Immediately he unlocked it. She pushed open the door and came into his room. I became an adventurer, brother, at C rank, she said happily, showing him her identity card with a bright smile. Silva took a look at it. Congratulations, but you never told me that you wanted to be an adventurer. Also, you are going to the academy next year, was there a need, he asked. She pouted her lips and hit his chest, but not strong enough to cause any pain. You are so dense sometimes. I became an adventurer because I wanted to go adventuring with you, she said. All right, I guess I haven't really had time to be with you. I was thinking of heading out today, so we should form a party and go to the labyrinth. It will also be a good opportunity for you to test out all that you have been learning for years now, Silva said. She agreed and decided to wait for him outside while he got changed. He wore simple light armor, and that was all. He got outside, and the two of them headed out. But as soon as they opened the door, they saw someone running towards their house. Sir Silva, the men called out, almost tripping and falling. A monster horde. There is a pack of over 100 wolves headed towards the town. The Viscount has asked that all mercenaries and adventurers help out. He specifically told me to come and get you, the men said. Silva looked at Leah. Take care of Mom and Dad. We will go to the labyrinth another day. He dashed off at an inhuman speed, the ground cracking from his burst. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him and got to the gates in less than 5 minutes. He saw the guards and adventurers lined up in formation, waiting for the horde. The horde was just as they said, filled with wolves, up to 100. Silva thought this would be easy, seeing their numbers, but Fong contacted him. Master, there are over 500 beasts headed for your town, and most are over level 50. Several are up to level 70 and above. This forest doesn't have this many. How come? Silva asked. It's the men from before, the one that caused Mike's abomination to be complete during that time at the labyrinth. He is riding a large beast that is about level 100 if I am not wrong, Fong said. All right, then keep watch and help me as much as you can in the forest. When I have the opportunity, I'll send my clones as backup, or I'll come myself, Silva said. That man, he wanted to meet him, find out who he was and what he wanted here. This was a good opportunity to finally get to the men, but he would have to fight his way through. The wolves finally got into range and the battle started, the explosion of magic, the crushing of skulls, and the slashing of swords, the sounds filled the air. Silva didn't move yet. He took out his sword and got ready. He wanted to test out his strength as of now. He closed his eyes and let the intelligence squad make up a plan in his head. In less than a second, they did and sent the information to all the minds, and with the final OK from Mind 1 and OG Mind, Silva shot like a bullet. A wolf leaped into the air to bite Silva. He sidestepped, dodging the wolf by only an inch in the most effective way. He slashed up and cut the wolf into 2 halves. You have killed a wind wolf, 100 EXP 50 SP, x10. The notification came through, but immediately the intelligence squad turned off all notifications. Their calculations decided that Silva would be slightly distracted by the notifications. As soon as he finished that wolf, he took a step forward and stabbed the head of an incoming wolf, penetrating the skull. He pulled his sword back and grabbed the wolf by the throat. He used the body to slam a wolf that was coming from behind him. With all his minds working, Silva could sense 360 degrees around his body for as much as half a kilometer. There was no way any beasts would sneak up on him. He stabbed the wolf that he hit and dropped the body of the wolf he held. 3 wolves leaped at him at the same time, but Silva vanished and reappeared in the air above them, cleanly decapitating all of them. He landed on the ground and looked at the battlefield. The battle was raging, lives were getting lost on both sides. Silva could salvage this situation and take care of just about 100 wolves. In his eyes, calling all adventurers and guards was overkill. But he still decided not to do too much. He didn't know what power that person had. If he wasted his energy here, he may not be able to stop the real threat. Quinn noticed Silva on the battlefield and made his way to him quickly. Silva, Quinn called out. Yeah, what's up, bro? Silva asked. You are probably wondering why the Viscount would call all the adventurers and guards for some wolves, right? Quinn asked. He stabbed an incoming wolf while talking and ripped his sword through its side. Yeah, that question was in my mind. It seems like overkill, or does the Viscount know about the other hundreds of beasts in the forest? Silva asked as he sidestepped and dodged a wolf, splitting it in half. Seems you know already. Well, it was my team that noticed the several beasts. The wolves were just far ahead and got to the town first. The Viscount didn't have the time to explain to everyone, but he specifically asked me to tell you to help him protect this town, Quinn said. What about the other B ranks? And the guild master? Silva asked. They are the final line of defense, but you are the sword that will go forward, Quinn said. All right, I understand what you want. I'll go ahead then, Silva said. All right, my party will provide you with support, Quinn said. He took out a crystal and crushed it. All the members had the same crystal on them, and as soon as Quinn broke his own, theirs cracked as well. This was a crystal that allowed them to know that they were being summoned by their boss, so they all immediately headed for Quinn. By now, more than half of the wolves were already dead, so the battlefield was far clearer. All right, we will be backing Silva up. Try to keep up, Quinn said and then nodded to Silva. Quinn charged towards the forest and called Fong to meet him. The party already knew about Fong, so when they saw him, they didn't react. Fong, were you able to take out some? Silva asked. Yes, I killed about 10, but then that man noticed me, so I ran away before he could do anything, Fong said. That was a good decision. We don't know what he is capable of just yet, Silva said. They soon came into contact with horned earth bears. A single one could stand 10 feet tall, and there were more than 20 here. Their levels all ranged from 50 to 60 with high strength and defense stats over 100. Take them 2-on-1, Silva said to the party. The only person amongst them that would be able to take one on would be Quinn. For the others, they wouldn't be able to handle the strength of the bears. Silva could sense several more beasts farther in the back, but he couldn't sense that person yet. A bear used its paw to slam Silva. Silva blocked the attack with his sword, and the bear received the whiplash from the strike. Their strength was evenly matched. It was like a fully grown adult versus a baby. The bear was enraged that it couldn't hit Silva, so it attacked again. Silva dodged the paw and sliced it off. The decapitated hand flew into the air. Silva leaped into the air, his intelligence squad stats calculating. With the results of their calculations, he kicked the paw at the perfect angle, causing it to shoot forward, and the claws pierced into the bear's eyes. Silva landed, then dashed at the thrashing bear in pain. He jumped again and slit the bear's throat cleanly. "TSK, that was too easy," Silva said. He was immediately attacked by another bear. He moved out of the way and then kneed the bear in the head, obliterating its skull. Before the blood of the bear reached the ground, he charged at another, got on its back, and twisted the bear's head, killing it. He had basically stopped using his sword, as he felt it was pointless. Fong was also toying with the beasts. He used his paws to playfully bat their heads off with ease. Not only was he stronger, but he also had the 10 times bonus. He would have already attacked that man, but Silva didn't allow him to, which was why he ran away. Right now, his strength was that of an evolved beast, or even more. He was confident in that, but Silva was a cautious person. The 20 bears were killed in 5 minutes. Quinn only managed to kill 2, and his party took down 2. The rest were split between Silva and Fong. Was there really a need for us to come with Sir Silva? Roy asked. Of course, what if something happened to him? Roxy said. I feel like there is nothing in this region that can threaten Silva, Rox said. Haha, you guys are overestimating me, Silva said. No, Master, you are the one underestimating your power. Honestly, you are the most terrifying being I have seen. That man had taken us by surprise that day, but he didn't give me the kind of aura you give me. When I look at you, I feel like a massive being is glaring at me. The aura you exude is a mountain, and that man is a molehill, Fong explained. Silva thought about what Fong said. It was common for beasts to subconsciously fear stronger beings. If that was the case, then Fong was scared of Silva's dragon. The dragon in him was visible to beasts, maybe even to humans. Silva felt a sense of pride from that. Hidden mission complete, understand yourself. You are a dragon, a prideful being. Caution is not in your nature. Rewards, dragon newt form. Transform into a human lizard form. All stats are doubled. Pride of a dragon. Your pride rises during battle, and so does your efficiency. These messages were so important that the intelligence squad had to let Silva see them. When Silva saw it, he felt pride rising in his body. He set aside all the plans he had. He looked at his brother. Quinn, return to the town and protect it. I'll take care of everything here, Silva said. Quinn wanted to refuse, but he looked at Silva's glowing eyes and knew that this was not a discussion. He ordered the team to move out. Roxy was reluctant, but Silva walked to her and assured her with a pat on her head that he would be fine, so she finally left with the party. Silva summoned all his clones, all of them stood side by side, waiting for the beasts that were headed their way. He understood that the clones all had higher stats than him, so to make everything level out, he took out the Minotaur's axe. All the clones were armed with basic swords, but with their power, it was enough for what they needed to do. Silva got on the back of Fong, and leading the army of clones, he charged into battle as soon as the next wave of beasts came into sight. 11 Silvas ripped through the wave like a typhoon, and nothing was left, the beasts were all decimated in seconds. They continued inward for the main army, and finally, they came head-on with the remaining beasts and the mysterious man that sat on the largest beast. As soon as the men saw the enemies, he raised his hands, and the beasts charged at Silva and his clones. The clones split into 2 groups of 5 and all used flash step to flank the men. Silva instructed Fong to blast a path through the center. Fong used a powerful lightning roar, roasting all the beasts that blocked their path, and then he charged through the middle. The men riding the beast panicked. He tried to retreat a bit, but he forgot to give the beast the right instructions, and the beast ended up throwing him to the ground and almost stomping on him. He rolled out of the way and got on his feet. He took out a pin and injected the beast. It was similar to the one he used on Mike. Just like Mike, the beast started turning into an abomination, but Silva could not allow it. He didn't know how much the strength of the beast would rise if it became an abomination. He jumped from Fong's back and then used the new skill he had gained, which was transforming into a dragon newt. His entire body was covered in thick black scales, his head took a lizard-type shape, and wings sprouted from his back, as well as a tail, but that was not the amazing part. With the axe in his hands, his stats had already reached over thousands, but now that was not just doubled by the skill, it was also multiplied by 10. His strength soared and hit a new high, well over 10,000. Silva felt like there was nothing in this world that could stop him at this moment. He swung the axe down, it tore through space, creating ripples as it moved. Immediately the axe touched the beast, it was blown to smithereens, the ground was torn apart, and the men was blasted away. A clone ran and caught the men, they couldn't let him get away now, could they? That was why they flanked him, in case he ran away. Now that their leader was taken down, all the beasts started running wild. Silva still had use for their EXP, so the clones dealt with the beasts, and that allowed Silva to level up. Level up, 2 free stat points. Silva walked to the men on the ground and removed his cloak, expecting to find out who he was, but what he saw was not normal. It looked like a wooden doll, it had no face, no features whatsoever, and now that Silva had looked at it, it cracked up and then turned to dust like it was made of clay. It seemed that whoever that person was, he was far smarter and stronger than Silva thought. He thought that he had finally caught the men, but it was a puppet. That simply meant that the men was somewhere watching what was happening. Silva tried to think of a reason, with all his minds working at hyperdrive, but he still could not come up with a good reason for this men to be attacking this town. The only 2 reasons were the men wanted Silva, or he wanted the dungeon. There could be another reason, but Silva had no lead. Sigh, forget it, I can't figure it out, Silva said. He unsummoned his clones, packed up all the dust from the doll as well as the cloak, before getting on Fong and leaving the forest. He would have to take more time to think and look into the matter, it couldn't be rushed, but he knew for certain that the men wanted something in this town. As soon as Silva left the forest and was far gone, a tear in space appeared and the cloaked man walked out, staring in the direction Silva had gone. So he is the one to be wary of. I'll need to get rid of him for the sake of the plan, the men said, and then disappeared. Underscore 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 underscore. As Silva headed back to town, he asked Fong to stay in the forest. He went back on his feet, but before he reached the town, he felt a gaze. He turned back and looked in the direction of the gaze, he was vaguely able to sense a person, one similar to the cloaked man. Silva thought of running back into the forest to fight him, but that wouldn't be possible. A person capable of appearing and disappearing, as well as hiding his presence, would surely escape before he got there. Silva decided not to do anything, he just waited, and when the men finally disappeared, he went into the town. Immediately he got back to town, Quinn and the others came to meet him. Quinn explained to him that another beast used a different route and made it to the town gates. It was as strong as the one that Silva had killed in the forest. The beast caused a lot of injuries but no deaths. They finally subdued it, and now the beast was captured alive and taken to the Adventurers Guild. Silva also had to go to the Adventurers Guild, he needed to talk to Reyes about the cloaked men. If he wanted to find out the reason for the men attacking, he needed some help. After relaying all that had happened to the guildmaster, they discussed a plan of action on how to deal with whoever that man was. It seemed that the man was searching for something in this town, and the person who knew most about the town would be the Viscount. So the guildmaster decided that he would go and have a talk with the Viscount to try to find out what the issue was. Silva, on his own oath, decided to take a rest. He was a bit tired after using the dragon newt form for the first time. "Brother, are you ready to go?" Leah asked as she knocked on the door repeatedly in an impatient manner. Yeah, I am almost done, Silva said, putting on his armor and opening the door. Since they didn't have the opportunity to go to the labyrinth the other day, they had decided to go today. They left the house and headed straight for the labyrinth. Leah seemed extremely happy that she was getting to go into the labyrinth, her face was all smiles. All right, Leah, I need you to listen closely. You are never to stray beyond where we can see each other. If something were to happen, I need to be able to see you. Also, there may be monsters that have hidden abilities and can use them at any time. You have to keep a level head and ensure that you watch out, Silva gave his warnings. All those are true, brother, but I don't have to fear all that much. After all, I still have you with me, Leah said. Silva was happy that his relationship with his sister was not destroyed. He didn't know how he would react if she chose not to relate with him because they weren't siblings. Underscore. First floor, Ribis Town Dungeon. Silva stood behind Leah as some goblins charged at her. She pointed her hands at them. Ice bullet. She cast her spell. Silva expected that it would fire only one ice bullet, but it fired more than 10, completely decimating all the goblins. What the hell? He asked in shock. Leah looked at him and gave him a silly smile with her tongue out. Seems she has grown way more than I was expecting. Her legacy must be a high-class one. All right, it seems you will be able to handle everything on the first floor, so I'll just follow for safety. You'll take care of all the monsters, Silva said. Leah nodded and started heading deeper into the dungeon. They spent a lot of time taking out monsters on the first floor and finally moved to the second floor. Like the first time, they came in contact with a chimera. Silva wanted to step in and kill it, but Leah took care of it. Ice coffin. She called out. Ice spread from under the chimera, covering it completely. When the chimera was completely covered, the ice shattered into pieces, and so did the chimera. Silva watched this in shock. So this was the power of a legacy. He couldn't use himself as a standard for measurement because his abilities were absurd. But his sister was a perfectly normal person. Even for Quinn, he would need to fight a bit to kill the chimera, yet she took it out with one spell. He decided to take a peek at her stats with dragon eyes. He hadn't done it in a while. She was already level 23, and her base stats were all more than 40, but her intelligence was close to 100. Since intelligence was needed for casting spells, it made sense that it would be higher. Her stats were impressive, and so was her level. Their father was stuck in the 20s, yet she was able to surpass that with ease. Her legacy was surely powerful. Silva finally understood where Mike's hate and anger stemmed from. In a family of normal adventurers, there was a son with extraordinary combat abilities and mastery of the sword, who had also become a peak C-rank adventurer. Then there was a daughter with a powerful legacy who was growing at an outstanding rate. Her future was set to be great. Lastly, there was the adopted son. He wasn't even part of the family, yet he was the most terrifying out of all of them, and common sense didn't apply to him. Mike was the only normal person, and that was what ate him up. He could never compare to his siblings, and who better to pour his rage on aside from the outsider who took his sister's love from him. The stronger the three got, the more the hate grew in his heart. Silva spent until noon killing monsters with his sister, but they didn't go past the second floor. He decided that it was enough for now, so they left the labyrinth. He wanted to take it easy on her first raid, and they could go deeper in the future. After they left, he walked her back to the town. I'll be heading to the labyrinth. I have to raid for myself, Silva said. Huh? I wanted to spend the rest of the day with you as well, Leah complained. Sorry, I'll make it up to you another time, Silva said. She pouted, and then she hugged him out of nowhere. I'll hold you to that, she whispered into his ear before she left. Silva stood there in a bit of a daze. He didn't know why, but she did send a shock through his entire body. After clearing his head, he headed into the forest, where he met Fong. Are we doing it today? Fong asked. Yes, we will be going as deep as possible into the labyrinth. Let's find out what's in there, Silva said. Since the first day they entered the labyrinth, he had this feeling of a power the deeper he went, so he wanted to find what it was. When Fong and Silva arrived at the dungeon, there were many people looking at them. It was shocking to see a kid with such a massive beast, and some people were not from the town, so they didn't know about him. As you would imagine, a party stood in his way, about to make trouble for Silva. Silva began wondering, didn't these people already see him when he came with his sister? So the only reason they are here now to trouble him is Fong. The man who was the leader looked slim, and he held a long sword. The rest of the party consisted of just men, 5 in number. "Hey kid, why don't you let us take a look at your pet?" The man asked with a smile that could make the devil cringe. "Why do you idiots never do any research before acting? Why don't you think?" Silva asked. "What the hell did you say?" The man asked as he grabbed Silva by the neck. People saw what was happening, and when those who knew Silva realized it was him, they started talking. "Isn't that Silva?" one asked. "Yeah, it's him. Seems someone is picking on him. The hell? Do they want an early death?" The men holding onto Silva heard some of the conversations but didn't understand why. Who was Silva? Do you even know how to use your head? A 12-year-old walks around with a massive tiger beside him, yet no one has tried to do anything to him, Silva said. The men heard Silva. He thought about what Silva said, and it made sense. Added to the words of pity he had started hearing from the people watching, he knew something was wrong. Silva grabbed his hand when he felt the man's grip loosen. "Do you think you can grab me and walk away like that? You must be delusional," Silva said. Silva's eyes glowed, and the men shivered uncontrollably. He tried to say something, but his mouth wouldn't open. "Hey, let go of our leader," one of the guys said. He was on the younger side and tried to come close to Silva, but Fong blocked him, roaring at the men. The men fell to the ground, ridden with fear. He couldn't even move after Fong roared. "That's enough, Silva," a voice came from behind. Silva had already noticed this person approaching long ago. It was the B-ranked adventurer and the #1 adventurer of Ribest, Lucas Grave. He was a noble who had chosen the adventuring life and decided to stay in this town. He was a well-built man in his middle ages. He had a thick beard and neck-length hair, with a massive sword on his back. Behind him was his party, known as the Lost Winds, made up of 2 women, a knight and a mage, and 2 men, a swordsman and a healer. "Sir Lucas, it's quite nice to see you here," Silva said without looking at Lucas. He knew Lucas' strength. It was said that Reyes was the strongest in the town, but honestly, Lucas would definitely win in any fight between them. That was because he was a terrifyingly good swordsman. No one in the town had ever made him use his true sword technique. "I don't know what happened here, Silva, but you shouldn't disrespect other adventurers like this," Lucas said. "Disrespect? No, that's not it. I am simply showing this lowlife his place. He laid his hands on me in an attempt to hurt me. I am sorry, but there's no way I can comply with your wish to let him go, not until I'm done ensuring he is punished well," Silva said. He didn't really care about the men he held. He didn't even have him in his sights. But Silva was stubborn due to his legacy. He would have normally not hit this man too hard, but when Lucas told him to let him go, something in him refused and rebelled against it. "Silva, we are both B-ranked adventurers. For the sake of the respect we both have, I ask that you let him go. This can be settled in a more amicable manner," Lucas said. "Not happening," Silva said. He lifted the man into the air, slammed him into the ground, lifted him again, and sent him flying with a kick. The man slammed against a tree and coughed up blood before fainting. "You bloody little brat," Lucas roared in rage. He took out his sword and charged at Silva. The ground cracked from the force of his movements, and he was like a bull rushing toward a red cloth. Silva took out his sword. As soon as Lucas swung, Silva used his sword to block the attack, then stopped him and sent a kick into Lucas' chest. He sent Lucas back a few meters before finally stopping. "Don't stand in my way, Sir Lucas, or the respect I have for you will diminish," Silva said as he turned and left with Fong. Everyone who witnessed the scene was filled with all sorts of thoughts and emotions. They didn't know how to react to what had happened. Lucas looked at Silva as he entered the labyrinth, his mind filled with rage for Silva. He wanted to kill Silva, to end that little brat. "What you did back there, master, was there a reason?" Fong asked. "At first, I was honestly pissed at that man, but then later I sensed Lucas. I wanted to see what the strongest person in Ribist was like. I've heard so much about him and the exploits he had done. So when I sensed him, I took that as my opportunity to test his strength. He wanted to show that he was the strongest, and he tried to stop the conflict. So my refusing to listen and doing what I did back there was bound to piss him off. The final straw was when he attacked me. I ensured to make him look bad in front of everyone, so I put enough strength into my counter. All this will genuinely piss him off, and he will come for me. And when he does, he will use his true strength to fight me. Then, I'll be able to see the technique that everyone talks about, Silva explained. He and Fong walked through the first and second floors unhindered. It wasn't until they got to the third floor that they had to start fighting. It seemed the monsters on floors 1 and 2 were scared of Fong, a natural predator. Boom. A massive fireball exploded against the wall. Silva moved out of the way just in time to dodge the fireball. The salamander that shot the fireball receded quickly into the darkness after attacking. This was the 6th floor of the labyrinth, and unlike other floors, this one had very little lighting. Silva could still see, but his enemies thought otherwise. He was facing a pack of level 70 flame salamanders, and they were using hit-and-run techniques to fight. Silva took the time to find out if there were any really strong ones amongst them, but it turned out that there weren't, all were right around the same level. Since that was the case, he wanted to take them all out in one swoop. He decided to make the best use of the enemies, and that was to grow stronger. Meeting his father, the Duke, and also that Cloakman had shown him that there was so much he was yet to know in this world. Gates of Hell. He activated the spell that consumed all souls. He took his sword and slashed his hand, pouring out blood that turned to gas and then disappeared. The gate appeared and started sucking in all the salamander souls. They struggled, but against Silva's spell, it was futile. You have killed a flame salamander 300 EXP 150 SP, X10. You have killed a flame salamander 300 EXP 150 SP, X10. He gathered a ton of EXP from killing them, but it still wasn't enough for him to get to level 42, so he decided to use Consume on the souls inside the gates of hell. Consume. You have gained 100 EXP, X10. You have gained 100 EXP, X10. Level up, 2 free stat points. He finally leveled up, but that was not the main thing, it was the next notification. Consume has evolved to Gluttony. Gluttony, consume the strength and abilities from the opponents. When Gluttony is activated, the urge to consume will get stronger and stronger over time, X10. This skill was a double-edged sword for Silva. When he consumed a skill, he would get 10 times the power of the skill when it was with the owner, but also, the urge he would feel to consume would be 10 times stronger than it would normally be. Still, it was clearly a powerful skill, one that would raise his power faster than before. There was northwest better place to try out a skill called Gluttony except for the labyrinth, so Silva activated the skill and headed deeper with Fong. The upper floors are too weak, Silva said. No, Master, you are just too strong, Nat responded. Fong, I noticed that your base strength is far too high for the place where I found you. What was that? Silva asked. The labyrinth spoke to me on a normal day. I think I was in a deep floor, and then I heard the voice. It promised me my freedom as long as I went to a particular floor and waited for some days. I did as I was told and went there to wait, and after some days of waiting, you finally came by, Fong explained. Then you mean this labyrinth is alive? Not only that, but it can also see the future. Silva asked. I don't know for sure, but that was what happened, Fong said. As they headed deeper, they didn't come across any beasts, but then, all of a sudden, the ground began to shake. The floor burst open, and 7 dragon heads made of black-looking metal came out. Their presence was terrifying, and as they roared at the same time, the labyrinth shook. They came out of the ground fully. Their massive body was like that of a dragon, but without any wings. All heads locked on Silva and Fong as soon as they appeared. Is that a hydra? Silva wondered aloud. It wasn't a real hydra, though, and was some sort of mechanical hydra or metal golem. The hydra opened all its mouths and immediately fired 7 streaks of purple flame that all merged at the center to create a more massive blast. Fong jumped in front of Silva, opened his mouth, and fired a powerful stream of lightning that collided with the hydra's blast and cancelled it out. Silva took the time to look at the stats of the hydra, and he discovered that the Hydra had no levels, but it had an average stat of over 1,000. Something that strong shouldn't be on this floor, Silva said. As he said that, he heard a cheeky giggle coming from all around the labyrinth. It seemed it was the labyrinth itself that made that laugh. Fong, is that the voice that spoke to you? Silva asked. Yes indeed, Master. That was the voice, Fong said as he got ready to take another attack from the Hydra. Then the labyrinth must be watching us for some reason, Silva thought. He looked around and then yelled. What do you want from us? He asked. Kill the Hydra, and you will find out, the little voice said again. Silva was curious and wanted to know, so he decided that they would kill the Hydra quickly. Fong, take him out, Silva ordered. With pleasure, my lord, Fong said, and his body vanished, appearing behind the Hydra. His claws crackled with lightning as he slashed into the base of the necks. He decapitated all 7 heads at once. The body of the Hydra fell to the ground and then vanished, leaving a small crystal behind. Silva walked to the crystal and picked it up. Teleportation crystal acquired. Destination has already been set. Do you wish to use the crystal? Fong, come closer to me, Silva said, and Fong came close. Use the crystal, Silva said. Please pour some mana to activate the crystal. Silva did that, and the crystal lit up brightly. A magical circle appeared under them, and their bodies started disappearing. Silva and Fong appeared before a massive door, but the door was not the issue, it was the massive pressure that came from behind it. Silva felt like he would suffocate while standing there. He didn't want to take another step, but a force started pushing both of them. The doors opened, and they were forced into what looked like an extremely massive throne room. There was nothing in this throne room aside from the being that sat on the throne with its head down. All the pressure came from that being. Silva's heart was racing for the first time, he had never felt this tense in his life. If not for the pressure he was feeling, he would have run away for sure. The force pushed them until they stood halfway through the throne room. The being on the throne looked smallish, like a child. You are finally here, the being spoke. Its voice was small and childish, like a little girl. She looked up at both of them, and the pressure intensified, but Silva still felt tense in her presence. She was a child with jet black hair and 2 horns on her head. She got up from her throne and walked toward them, with black dragon wings and a dragon tail. Her long black gown dragged on the floor as she walked. Silva felt his heart beating faster than normal as she approached. What would he do to get out of this situation? He wanted to activate the Joker of the Abyss, but then he heard the girl's voice in his head. Don't do that, she said. Her voice suppressed his mana and stopped the activation of the Joker of the Abyss. The Joker of the Abyss was his strongest spell. If that didn't work, there was really nothing he could do. Only her voice could suppress him. She got closer and closer to them until finally, she stood right in front of Silva. She opened her arms, and Silva believed that his end had come. But instead, he felt her arms wrap around him tightly. She buried her head in his chest as much as she could and didn't let go. The labyrinth of the Dark Dragon has been transferred to you. Do you wish to accept? Wait, what the hell? What's this? Silva asked. He removed the girl from his body and gave her a very confused look. Did you do something just now? He asked. The shock he felt now overpowered the fear he had. She giggled and gave him a very cheeky smile. I transferred the labyrinth to you, she said, as if it were nothing. Fong immediately fell to his butt when he heard that, while Silva looked on in disbelief. What? Wait, why? His head was filled with tons of questions. What the hell was going on here? I'll explain everything you want, but now you must accept the labyrinth and fight the Guardian. Guardian? What Guardian? Silva asked. For me to transfer the labyrinth to you, you must prove that you are strong. That was the reason I sent powerful monsters your way for you to get strong, and that's why I sent Fong. I did all that so that the day you came here, you would be strong enough to defeat the Guardian. You weren't supposed to come here so fast. I was supposed to help you get even stronger, but you wanted to come, so hee. The girl said. The fuck is hee? You want to kill me? Send me back. I have a feeling that this Guardian will not be simple at all, Silva said. Too late. I no longer have control over the labyrinth. I transferred it to you. If you don't accept it, the labyrinth will self-destruct and kill all of us. And if you accept it, you have to fight the Guardian. Those are the only options now, the girl said. Fuck, this girl just set me up, Silva complained in his thoughts. There was no choice now. I accept ownership of the labyrinth, Silva said. Ownership has been transferred to you. Congratulations on your ownership. 50,000 EXP gained, 50,000 SP, 500 SP, x10. Silva nearly passed out from shock at the rewards he got. Maybe becoming the owner was not so bad. Level up, 2 free stat points. 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 Congratulations on reaching level 50. Gift box in inventory. All stat points increased by 2, x10. Level up, 2 free stat points. Level up, 2 free stat points. By the time he finished leveling up, he was at level 55. Silva just stood there with his mouth open. His stats were no longer human. Name * Silva. Race * human, 50%, Dark Dragon, 50%. Legacy * Dark Dragon Legacy, awakened. Magical affinities * summoning, darkness, abyss magic. Mana * 800,000. EXP * 10, 000/45, 000. SP * 700,000. Level * 55. Strength * 690. Defense * 690. Speed * 690. Agility * 690. Intelligence * 690. Free stat points * 6,000. Silva had just become strong in an instant. He had so many stat points to distribute that his mouth began to water. He didn't know the strength of this guardian, so he had to get ready quickly. Add 1,000 points to all stats. He decided to leave 1,000 stat points for emergencies. The sudden spike in his stats caused a massive pain in his body. Silva fell to his knees and coughed up blood. Fong wanted to help him, but the girl blocked him. Don't. He is preparing for his fight, don't interrupt him, she said. After a few seconds, the pain subsided, and Silva got back on his feet. He wiped his mouth, and with a determined look on his face, he waited for the guardian. Strength * 1,690. Defense * 1,690. Speed * 1,690. Agility * 1,690. Intelligence * 1,690. Free stat points * 1,000. This was what his current stats looked like. A teleportation circle appeared in the hall, and a massive wyvern came out of it. Silva tried to use dragon eyes on it, but for the first time since he got the skill, he couldn't see anything. Additionally, he received a grievous whiplash for trying to peer into the stats of the wyvern. Silva took slow steps back because of the pain that hit him just now. The whiplash was on another level. Silva had one thought in all his minds right now: this was going to be the greatest fight he had fought so far. There was no holding back, he would have to pull all the stops. Fong, support me to the best of your abilities, Silva said. He took out the Minotaur's rage, his stats increased to about 10,000, but even with this power, he didn't feel like he could handle that wyvern. The wyvern took the axe in Silva's hand as a sign to start. It flapped its wings and shot at Silva so fast that it caused a sonic boom. Fong jumped in front of Silva, summoning all his strength. He came in with a paw attack. The wyvern saw the paw, but it didn't slow down. It opened its mouth and bit into the paw of Fong. Faster than Fong could react, the wyvern used its mouth to throw him so far that he slammed into a wall and cracked it. Silva saw that and it sent shivers up his body. Fong had stats of about 8,000, yet he was tossed like a bag of potatoes. The wyvern looked at Silva and fired a thick stream of purple flames. Silva used the axe to block the attack, but the force behind it sent him flying. He rolled through the ground for a dozen meters before coming to a stop. He got up from the ground as he sensed the wyvern coming from above. He moved out of the way just in time to dodge the wyvern, but the wyvern was too fast and smart. It swung its tail, it crackled like a whip, hit Silva in his chest, and sent him flying once more. Even with all his minds working at full power, he couldn't escape the wyvern. The power of the wyvern simply dominated his in all ways. The wyvern was not ready to allow Silva to get up. It opened its mouth to fire another stream of fire, but before it could, Fong slammed into the wyvern and managed to push it down. Fong had charged himself up with all the lightning he could. It allowed him to go fast enough to gather enough speed to hit the wyvern down. Fong tried to pin the wyvern down, but the wyvern bit deeply into Fong's shoulder and ripped out a chunk of flesh. Roar! Fong cried out in pain. He dropped his guard, and the wyvern used that. It pushed Fong off its body and then went in for a finishing bite. Dark blades, numbering hundreds, rushed at the wyvern, disrupting the wyvern from finishing Fong. It used its wings to block the blades. When the blades stopped and the wyvern took away its wings, it saw Silva up in the air, coming down with a powerful slash. The wyvern adapted to Silva's speed and was about to counter, but Silva transformed into his dragon newt form. His speed increased massively, and with the axe, strength ripped from the power. The wyvern as well was terrified by the attack. It got out of the way as fast as it could. The axe hit the ground and caused a massive explosion. A 50-meter radius was wiped out by just that move. The wyvern knew that attack would have killed it. It couldn't allow Silva to gather the strength for another attack. It rushed at Silva and fired a thick stream of flames. Silva summoned all his clones. This was not the time for him to try to do it alone. Aside from the fact that the clones were all stronger than him, there was safety in numbers as well. All the clones used darkness magic to create a large dome that covered them all. The dome was thick enough to block the attack, but barely. Immediately after the stream of flames stopped, the entire dome shattered. The clones all charged in different directions, trying to flank the wyvern. Silva ran towards Fong. He gave him a healing potion, and his wounds began healing up. Fong got back on his feet and charged at the wyvern. Silva used his dragon newt transformation, increasing his strength even more. He needed to get another chance to attack like the one he did before. He could tell that the Guardian was scared of that attack. "OG mind, we have a way that could work in landing a good enough attack," one intelligence mind spoke. "Yes, all the clones should be thinking this as well. You just have to transform, all of you, as you fight you pass the Minotaur's rage around, acting like you will be the one to attack," another mind said. "Yes, and that would confuse the wyvern, and at the end of the day, you will be able to kill it with a surprise blow when it is too confused," another mind said. "I see, that makes sense, then let's give it a try." "Body minds, you will need to give this your all," Silva said. He relayed the plan to the clones, and just like his mind said, the clones also had similar ideas. They all transformed into the dragon newt form. This sudden transformation threw the wyvern off. Fong took that advantage and blasted its head with a thick stream of lightning. The head of the wyvern swung like a pendulum that had been struck. It forced its head to stabilize. When it looked forward, it saw Silva headed its way with the axe. It immediately tried to blast Silva with flames, but Silva threw the axe and then used flash step to escape. This pass and dash method continued until it was very fast and had made the wyvern dizzy and confused. Its fear of that attack landing didn't allow it to think straight. This happened until the perfect opening was found and Silva lifted into the air, with all the power and all the force, and was about to land the hit. The wyvern sensed the attack, but it was too late. The axe dug into its shoulder deeply, so deep that the cracking of bones could be heard as the axe ripped through. The wound was so large that the arm looked like it would fall off at any given time. The wyvern fell to the ground in pain. Silva heaved a sigh of relief, transformed back to normal, and walked to the side of the wyvern. He wanted to land the finishing blow. But in that instant, all his warning bells sounded in his head. Before he could react, the tail of the wyvern slammed into his chest. It hit with so much force that Silva's ribs shattered, and his body shot like a bullet into a wall. The attack knocked Silva out, and that caused all his clones to disappear, leaving only Fong standing. The wyvern got back on its feet, its wounds healed up completely, sealing them. But the aura around the wyvern changed completely, it looked very angry. The eyes of the wyvern glowed red, and it charged at Fong. It wanted to finish Fong off and then handle Silva. Fong stood his ground. He roared and fired a thick stream of lightning. The wyvern countered with a stream of flames that overpowered the lightning. The flames hit Fang, sending him rolling until he hit a wall and stopped. The wyvern walked toward Silva. Now that Fang was out of the way, it could deal with Silva. Fang saw the wyvern. He couldn't let his master be harmed. He channeled all his lightning into his body and used it to dash. His speed caused a sonic boom, and the wall cracked as well. He became like a bolt of lightning as he collided with the wyvern, sending it flying. Though Fang initiated the attack, the backlash he received was great, as he too was thrown into a wall. Both Fang and the wyvern got up at almost the same time. The wyvern shook off the impact of the attack, but the same could not be said for Fang. His head was bleeding, and his body was trembling. He was at the end of his strength, running on fumes, and even that was about to run out. But still, he couldn't let Silva get hurt. He had to do something. He summoned all the lightning he could. His body became like a shining light as the bolts crackled around him. But this was very dangerous, as his body was tearing up. Yet he refused to give up and kept going. He used all that force to charge at the wyvern and slammed into it. This time, only the wyvern was sent flying. But Fang was no better. His consciousness was fading, but to his surprise, the wyvern stood back up. Fang tried to stand, to not fall, to not give up, but his body wasn't responding. Then he felt a hand on him and heard a voice. "You did well to protect me, now let me do the same for you," Silva said. When Fang heard that, it was as though a switch in his head was turned off, and he fainted. Summon Fang has reached the level of evolution. Evolution has begun. It seems your sacrifice has paid off, Fang. Just stay there and peacefully evolve. I'll handle this now, Silva said. He walked closer to the wyvern with slow, steady steps. The wyvern felt uneasy and became cautious. The look in Silva's eyes caused it to panic. Summon all clones, Silva said, and all his clones appeared. Joker of the Abyss, all the clones called out at the same time, and they all transformed. The wyvern didn't know what was going on, but it knew that when they all transformed, there was danger. It spewed a stream of flames in a circular motion to deal with them all at once, but Silva and the clones pulled cards out of their decks, creating all sorts of defensive items that warded off the flames. Then they charged all at the same time. 2 clones leaped into the air. They drew their cards, and this time it was a Joker card. They threw the cards past the wyvern, and immediately upon passing the wyvern, they teleported to where the cards were. The Joker card allowed the Joker to teleport to where the card was, and so they used it to get close to the wyvern. Then they took out other cards that transformed into weapons. They all landed their attacks, and deep wounds showed on the head of the wyvern. After the first time Silva had used the Joker, he tried to find out more about it, and with the help of the system, he was able to get the information he needed. The Joker of the Abyss was a being with an infinite amount of cards, but he only had a 20% chance of pulling what he needed. But with Silva's 10 times buff, he had a 200% chance, which meant he could never pick what he didn't want. Every draw from the deck would be something he needed. With that in mind, he could pull out any legendary weapon to fight here. The Joker was his greatest strength. Even though that dragon girl was able to stop him from using it, this wyvern couldn't. And so, now he would go all out to finish the wyvern. But even with the Joker activated, the wyvern was shockingly able to land some hits on the clones, sending them flying, but the wounds had begun gathering as they used all manner of cards to attack. The wyvern was too preoccupied to notice that Silva had transformed into his dragon newt form and was holding the Minotaur's Rage in his hand, charging up for an attack. All of a sudden, all the clones distanced themselves from the wyvern. The wyvern got confused as to why, but when it looked up, it saw Silva coming from above with a powerful attack. The wyvern knew there was no dodging that. The axe was about to hit the wyvern's head, but a powerful force suddenly stopped the attack. Silva didn't understand what stopped him. He thought it was something the wyvern did, but as he looked at the wyvern, he saw it bowing. "Congratulations," the dragon girl said. She ran up to him. She had been watching the fight, and it had kept her on edge so many times. She was happy that Silva still managed to pull through. "Did I win?" Silva asked. "Yes, that force that stopped you was the labyrinth. It couldn't allow you to just kill one of the strongest beings in the labyrinth. It would be the same thing as killing your own forces," she explained. "It is as she said, my lord. I was utterly defeated by you, I acknowledge your power." The voice of the wyvern boomed through the hall. Silva looked at the wyvern and then the girl. Even though he had won, there were a ton of questions on his mind. She noticed that, so she tugged on his hand and pulled him to the throne. She sat him down there and then stood in front of him. You have a lot of questions, so I'll start by introducing myself. I beg you to just listen and ask me questions after I have finished the explanation, she said. Silva nodded. He wanted an explanation, so he had no issues. My name is Elsa, the last descendant of the Dark Dragon, and also the ruler of this place. You humans call it a labyrinth. The Dark Dragon created this place as his home, but due to his powerful aura, it caused monsters to spawn here. For many years, he lived here with all the other Dark Dragons of his family, but soon he died. Even I don't know the history of how he died or how the whole tribe died out. All I know is that my mum died some months after birthing me here. All that I know is what she taught me during the few months she was with me. She told me that I have to watch this place as the ruler and wait for the return of the ancestor, the Dark Dragon. She told me that he could be from any race, but he would bear the power of the Dark Dragon, and that no matter where he was, his destiny would pull him here to become the master of this place. I stayed here for over 100 years waiting for the person she spoke of, but for the past 100 years, no one of that identity came. But then, 12 years ago, I felt a strange energy, one that connected with me. Could this be the bearer of the power that my mum spoke of? I didn't know, so I decided to watch. I watched you for all these years until the day I was certain that even if you weren't the person she spoke of, you had something to do with the person. And so I made it so that the humans would find this place, and then finally one day you came in. That was when I started aiding you to get stronger, Elsa explained as best as she could. I see, I understand all that you said. I don't know if I am the one your mother spoke of, but I know that I have a connection to the Dark Dragon, as I received his power. Humans have something called a legacy, where they inherit the power of beings that once lived in this world, and I inherited that of the Dark Dragon, Silva said. Then it has to be you, and now since you have the power of the ancestor, you are basically my father, Elsa said with a broad smile. What the flipping hell did you just say? How did you come up with that logic? Silva asked. Did this dragon go senile from staying underground for too long? Well, you are basically the Dark Dragon, the one that gave birth to the whole tribe. Of course, you are my father, she responded. No, that logic feels like it was picked from a rubbish heap. There is no way I can be your father, I'm freaking 12, and you are well over 100 years, Silva said. Elsa looked at him with teary eyes and then burst into tears. She wailed so loudly that it pierced Silva's ears. What the hell is this? I can't even stand against her. She is far stronger and older than me, yet she is crying because I said I'm not her father. Silva thought. Elsa didn't stop, she kept crying until Silva could no longer take it, so he walked over and hugged her. I'm sorry, you can call me father if you want, Silva said. He had to force those words out of his mouth, it wasn't easy. Immediately he said that, she stopped like a tap that was turned off. A smile appeared on her face, a very cheeky one. Hee, yay, I won, she said and skipped around. This was the second time she had played him. He let out a sigh and just gave up. What was the point of arguing? Elsa, I want to use dragon eyes on you to see your stats. Am I allowed? Silva asked. No, your strength is too low. Even if I allowed you to see it, you would still receive a backlash that would kill you, Elsa said. Is that how great the gap between us is? She must be out of this world strong, Silva thought. Then what about Wyvern, sir? Can I take a look at him? Silva asked. Yes, you should be able to safely look at his, and since he is your servant now, he won't be hiding it from you again, Elsa explained. Silva looked over at the Wyvern. The Wyvern bowed its head in response. Guardian Wyvern. LVL 20, evolved. Strength * 25,000. Defense * 25,000. Speed * 30,000. Agility * 25,000. Intelligence * 20,000. Silva nearly screamed at the stats of a being that had evolved. He subconsciously looked at Fong, wondering how Fong's stats would look. Now that everything was handled, Elsa started explaining how the labyrinth worked. The labyrinth is one massive living construct, and it is now connected to you, Father. I don't know how, but the labyrinth is self-sufficient, it uses the life force and bodies of all the beings that died in the labyrinth, Elsa said. So what you're saying is that it consumes the beings that die to sustain itself, and then the extra humans that die here will be consumed so that the labyrinth will grow, Silva said. That's basically all there is to it, Elsa replied. Then what about the time when it was hidden, the period when the labyrinth was not open for people to enter? Silva asked. It's self-sustained, with my help, that is. Once every few days I release my aura, and the magic particles spread through the labyrinth, creating more monsters. So the number of monsters is always up. The labyrinth consumes the older monsters whenever I release my aura, paving the way for the younger ones to take control. That has been the path followed for all these years. But now that the labyrinth is open, I don't need to do it, because the humans that die here are enough resources to sustain the labyrinth and create new monsters, she explained. I understand, but I have one question. Aside from being in charge of all the monsters, what other gains do you have as the owner of the labyrinth? Silva asked. That's simple. The labyrinth accumulates all the energy it absorbs, and then once a month, it uses it for what is needed, and also gives 1% of the energy to the owner, basically increasing the strength of the owner. I know that 1% seems very low, but when you look at the size of this labyrinth with over 50 floors, the energy it gathers is not little. So 1% is still a massive amount, Elsa said. Silva didn't feel bad about the 1%, because for him it would be 10% due to his 10 times buff. He could barely hold in his smile, he tried his best to control his emotions. So what task do I have now that I am the leader? Is there anything special for me to do? Silva asked. No need to worry about that, father. I'll be the one to handle it for you. I understand that you have to get stronger and do certain things, so I wouldn't want you to be distracted. The only reason I handed over the labyrinth was because it was to be yours, but I have no issues continuing the work for a while, Elsa said. Silva subconsciously patted her head when she said that. He felt relieved because he really needed to train more. But when he looked at the face of Elsa, she had a triumphant smile on her face. Silva didn't understand why, but he felt like he was played again. But before anything else, father, you need to know the main monsters that live in the labyrinth. The wyvern you fought is one of the weaker ones, actually, Elsa said. What the hell? Weaker? Silva asked in shock. He couldn't believe that this labyrinth would have monsters stronger than the wyvern. A bright light shone in the labyrinth, and then 7 figures appeared, all bowing their heads. There were 6 of them plus the wyvern, making 7. These were all the guardians of the labyrinth, the strongest of the monsters in the maze, but calling them monsters didn't seem proper, as some looked humanoid and very intelligent. From the left was a half-spider, half-human. She had pretty white hair, and her upper human body was bare, revealing her ample chest. She had a seductive glint in her eyes, something that would make men fall for her even if she was a spider. It took a good amount of mental fortitude for Silva to resist. My lord, my name is Selix, an arachnid and the 4th guardian, she spoke and bowed once again. Her voice was completely sensual, sending shivers up Silva's spine, but he tried not to let it show. Nice to meet you, Guardian Selix, and thank you for having me as your master, Silva said. It is my pleasure, she responded. If you will allow me, may I see your strength? Silva asked. Most definitely, my lord, she agreed readily. Silva activated his dragon eyes on her. Guardian Arachnid, Selix. Level 40, evolved. Strength * 40,000. Defense * 45,000. Speed * 50,000. Agility * 55,000. Intelligence * 50,000. There was only one thing on Silva's mind when he saw this: if this was the guardian he had fought, he would have most definitely lost the battle. And according to her, she was only number 4, which meant there were 3 stronger than her. Silva became eager to see their strength. You are pretty strong. I feel if you were the one I fought, I would have never won, Silva said to Selix. Your praises are wasted on me, she responded and let out a giggle that made Silva's body heat up. If I want to keep my sanity and body, I better keep my distance from Selix, Silva made a mental note. If he wasn't careful, he might find himself banging this arachnid. The next guardian was the Minotaur. He stood at over 10 feet tall with a massive axe on his back. What's your name? Silva asked. My name is Zack, my lord, the 6th guardian here, Zack introduced himself. Silva went through the same procedure and checked Zack's stats. Guardian Minotaur, Zack. Level 25, evolved. Strength * 30,000. Defense * 30,000. Speed * 25,000. Agility * 20,000. Intelligence * 20,000. Zack seemed to be a monster focused on strength and defense, while his speed and agility fell short of the others. The next person was one that didn't sit well with Silva. It was a small girl, around 10 years old, with fairy wings on her back. She looked the smallest, but Silva felt a terrible aura coming from her. He didn't know why, but he was about to find out. Before Silva could even ask the fairy for her name, she introduced herself. I am Lily, the fairy, the second guardian. Second. Silva couldn't believe that she was the second guardian. All right, Lily, nice to meet you, Silva said. She smiled back at Silva, but the smile set his mind at unease, he didn't know why. He went ahead to try using his dragon eye to see her stats. Guardian Fairy, Lily. Level 80, evolved. Strength * 100,000. Defense * 100,000. Speed * 100,000. Agility * 100,000. Intelligence * 100,000. Magic * 10 million. What the hell? Silva couldn't hold himself back from shouting. Her stats looked like something a child writing a novel would do. All the stats were the same, aside from the fact that they were all 100,000. Her breath alone would crush Silva, and here he was standing as their leader. He suddenly felt a mountain of pressure press down on him, it became harder to breathe. Then there was the magic stat. The dragon eyes didn't normally show magic, but in her case, it did, and the number was simply absurd, 10 million mana points. Even Silva, who was proud of his mana, couldn't come close. He was simply at 800,000, while she was at 10 million. While he thought about how absurd this was, his eyes moved to Elsa. Elsa had said that he wouldn't be able to see her stats. Lily had such high stats, yet he was able to see Lily's stats. If this was the case, it simply meant that Elsa's stats were much higher than Lily's. This was a wake-up call to Silva. He was a frog in a small pond. He was considered the strongest in his town, yet look at the beings he was facing. I have to be cautious from here on out. If this labyrinth has such beings, it simply means there are several like them all over the world, and even more powerful ones as well. If I act too rashly and draw attention, they'll see me as a growing threat and take me out easily. I have to keep a low profile, just enough to not catch their eyes. Lily, your magic, it's out of this world, Silva said. Indeed, my magic is second only to Lady Elsa's, Lily said. That statement made Silva wonder about Elsa's strength again. He looked at Elsa, and she gave him her innocent smile. After Lily was the wyvern. They had already met, but Silva didn't know his name yet. Since Master has seen my strength already, I'll only tell him my name, the wyvern said. I am the seventh guardian, Wyvern Kratos. Silva nodded to the wyvern and then looked at the next person. It was an orc, but he looked like a human aside from the horn on his head. He had a smile, but his muscles still trembled with power. My name is Maru, the fifth guardian and an ogre. I look forward to working with you, he said. Guardian Ogre, Maru. Level 40, evolved. Strength * 35,000. Defense * 30,000. Speed * 35,000. Agility * 35,000. Intelligence * 35,000. Now, all that remained were the third guardian and the first guardian. The third guardian was a snake lady. She was half snake, half human like the arachnid, with glistening black and green scales. She carried the same sensual air. Silva was beginning to think this was something common to demon humans. My lord, my name is Jade, the demi-Leviathan guardian, she said with a smile, but the smile made Silva fear for his manhood. Just like with Celix, he decided to stay away from the snake. Guardian Jade, demi-Leviathan. Level 70, evolved. Strength * 90,000. Defense * 100,000. Speed * 95,000. Agility * 95,000. Intelligence * 90,000. Her stats were almost as absurd as the fairies. She was indeed powerful. Now, it was time for the main event of the day, the stats of the number 1 being. He looked completely human, aside from his longer ears and glowing red eyes. His skin was pale as paper, and he had sharp canines. My lord, I am Drake, the vampire guardian and the number 1 guardian. I'll be the one to be by your side for most of the time, Drake said. Silva wanted to try using his dragon eyes, but Drake raised his hand to stop him. Just like Lady Elsa, I advise you not to attempt to see my stats. It may not kill you, but the backlash will most definitely keep you bedridden for days, Drake explained. He is correct. His power is not simply higher than our little fairy lilies, it is so high that it would take all the guardians to fight him, and they would still lose in the end, Elsa said. You praise me too much, my lady, Drake said. Another overly powerful being. I am curious, but I shouldn't be reckless. Thank you all for accepting me as your leader. You are all very powerful beings. I am not close to being worthy of being your leader, but here I am. So to that end, I promise that I'll do my utmost best to get stronger, to become someone worthy of being your leader. I'll need your help to that end, so I hope we can work well together, Silva said. The whole thing had been a very stressful and great experience for Silva, but he had to head out at the end of the day. He left Fong in Elsa's care and teleported to the 10th floor before making his way towards the upper floors. Now that he was the owner of the labyrinth, he could teleport wherever he wanted in the labyrinth, and the monsters would also not lay their hands on him unless he willed it. These were all pretty good perks, but now he could no longer kill these monsters for EXP, because they had basically become his army. As he headed out, he made it to the 6th floor, and there he came face to face with Lucas and his party. When Lucas spotted Silva, his face changed into one of anger immediately. It was evident that he was still pissed. But now, Silva was no longer interested in Lucas, because he had come to the labyrinth and had seen beings that went beyond the normal concept of power. To him now, Lucas was an ant, not worth even stepping on. His pride as a dragon would be hurt if he brought himself so low as to fight this ant. So, because of that, he paid them no heed and headed on his way, but as he was about to pass, Lucas raised his sword to block him. I challenge you to a duel, tomorrow at the guild's arena, Lucas said. I won't be coming, Silva said and continued on his way. Be careful what you choose, Silva. I may not be able to trouble your existence, but I know you will leave this town soon, and then Mike and Quinn will be in my hands, Lucas said. Silva paused when he heard that threat, and he flashed a smile at Lucas. I see, so that's how you play. Well, after tomorrow, no one will have to worry about you, Silva said and walked away. He wasn't angry at what Lucas had said, it was just an ant taking opportunities, there was no issue with that. But still, tomorrow, the town would lose its strongest for sure. Silva didn't have plans to show mercy. He left the labyrinth after a while and headed back into the town before it got dark. He headed straight home. On his way home, he felt a presence, no, even more than one. With his powerful mind, he sensed over 20 cloaked people running through the town. Seems they are making their move. I should discuss with Reyes after the fight tomorrow, Silva said and headed inside. From that night till the next day, the word of the duel spread faster than wildfire on dry leaves. The duel was scheduled for noon, and no adventurer wanted to miss it, in fact, no one wanted to miss it. The guild master had to loan a projection crystal from the mayor. It worked like a normal projector, but it projected large holograms into the sky. This one was so large that the whole town would be able to see. It also produced the sounds that it recorded. The smallest crystal would be set inside the arena to capture the fight, while the bigger one projected. This was just how big of a deal the two well-known B-ranked adventurers' clash was. When it was time for the match, Silva decided to go late by over 10 minutes. Talks that maybe he ran away from the fight filled the arena as everyone waited for Silva. Finally, Silva arrived in casual clothes, not armor. He got to his place in the arena and faced Lucas, who was all armored up. In his hand was his giant sword, ready to go. I thought you would chicken out and run, but instead, you came to me empty-handed to insult me, Lucas said. Just shut up and let the duel begin, Silva said. The referee saw that they were both ready, and so he raised his hand and brought it down to signify the start of the duel. I will make you cry, kid. Your strength has gone to your head for far too long, Lucas said. The rage in his eyes could not be hidden as he kicked off the ground. He charged like a mad bull, yet his movements were precise, with the proper intent. Anyone could tell that his movements were a life's worth of training, slowly accumulated and burned into his body. Sadly, to Silva, who stood on the opposite side, it was nothing but a bore, so boring that he yawned loudly and smacked his lips after. Everyone was taken aback by this. Silva was clearly not taking this seriously. Did he have a death wish? This was the strongest adventurer in this town, after all. Reyes, who was watching from his office in the guild, could already tell that Lucas had lost the fight. Silva, though he looked bored, was already watching Lucas and plotting the quickest way to take him out, but Lucas was too preoccupied with his rage to see the truth. Lucas was filled with rage when Silva did that right in front of him. He couldn't hold himself back anymore. He activated his most powerful technique, the sword glowed blood red. Lucas swung with all his might. The blade moved so fast that the normal eye would not be able to see. Silva threw a casual punch at the incoming blade, and when his fist collided with the blade, an explosion happened, and a figure shot like a bullet in one direction and was lodged very deep into the wall. Of course, that person was Lucas. Immediately when Silva's fist collided with Lucas's sword, several things happened. Before the sword shattered, a massive force was passed through the sword into Lucas's arms, shattering the bones inside like they were all made of crackers. The sword shattered, and the particles were all pushed toward Lucas because of the force of the punch. They stabbed several places in Lucas's body, leaving him with several holes. The last thing that happened was that the force from the punch slammed against Lucas's chest, cracking and breaking several ribs, and then sending him flying. Lucas hit the wall, and that caused its own set of injuries. When he fell to the ground, he wasn't awake. Heck, they didn't even know if he was alive. But Silva had made sure to leave him alive. This town still needed their strongest. Silva wouldn't be here for too long. All eyes shifted to Silva, who stood casually after destroying the strongest. No one knew how to feel at this moment, so they didn't react at all, just stood confused. Silva left the arena without looking back. Today, he showed a little bit of his power for the sake of a warning, and also to attract attention. Sure, he said if he overdid things it would be an issue, but he also wanted to be trending news that would ring in the ears of the Duke. He had a little revenge plan, after all. After my talk with the Viscount, there is nothing of notice in this town, the only thing would be the labyrinth. And since you said that the first time you saw him was at the labyrinth, it is possible that it had something to do with the labyrinth, Reyes said to Silva as they sat in the office. But they have also been moving around town. I sensed them the other day. They are planning something, Silva said. Suddenly, he felt something was wrong. There was a barrier forming around the town. There is an issue right now, Guild Master, Silva said and got on his feet. Immediately, an adventurer burst through the door. His breathing was heavy, but he tried to still speak. Guild Master, about 10 cloaked men were found around the town. They activated some sort of magical circle, and now a barrier is forming around the town, the men relayed. It makes sense now. They must have been studying the town as well as drawing this circle in order to trap us inside. Then they can go to the labyrinth for whatever they have to do, Reyes deduced. It must be very calculated because Lucas is still healing, and all other rank B adventurers are also within this town as well, Reyes pointed out again. So they ensured that anyone that would relatively be a threat is inside the barrier, and they can move unhindered and do what they want, Silva said. He looked at Reyes, and Reyes nodded. The both of them dashed out of the office and headed into town. The streets were filled with people, all looking at the barrier that had formed over the town. Silva took out his sword and leaped high into the sky, slashing the barrier. It rippled violently but didn't break or crack. Silva landed back, he looked at Reyes and shook his head. It is tough, too tough, he said. But this time, all his minds were working in parallel to find a way out of the situation, and in less than 5 seconds, a general idea was made. Silva would use Dragon's Eye on the barrier and find the weakest point, then he would gather his strength for a powerful attack. I have a plan that may work, Sir Reyes. Get the adventurers and the Viscount's personal army ready. Once the barrier breaks, we will all be heading to the labyrinth, Silva said. Reyes didn't question Silva, he simply nodded and moved along. He ran as fast as he could. Silva activated his dragon eyes and took a look at the barrier. He ran around the town, watching for the weak point, until he finally found the place where all the energy converged. He took out his sword and sent a full-power stab to the exact point. The entire circuit of the barrier and the formation collapsed and imploded, causing the entire barrier to break down. Silva didn't go to search for Reyes or anyone else. He started running towards the labyrinth at full speed. That place belonged to him now. He couldn't let someone just waltz in. When he got to the labyrinth door, he saw the mutilated bodies of the adventurers that had come out to the labyrinth. It was not a pretty sight as their innards were slashed out and their blood painted the ground. Their eyes were wide open, frozen in a state of fear and panic. That meant the people that killed them surprised them and then dominated them. Silva walked around, closing the eyes of those that still had full heads. After that, he walked to the door, taking one last look back. He entered the labyrinth. As soon as he stepped foot in the labyrinth, he teleported to the throne room. As soon as he appeared, he was jumped by Elsa in a bear hug. "Daddy," she yelled out as she grabbed him. "Daddy. That's a new one," he said to her. "I'm trying out new ways to call you, that's all," she said. Silva caressed her like a child and headed for the throne. The guardians that were there all bowed to him as he passed by. He sat on the throne with Elsa on his lap, and then he spoke. "I am very sure you already know that some set of people came into the labyrinth. Is there a way for us to monitor them?" he asked. "Of course, Master," Drake said and snapped his fingers, and every floor of the labyrinth appeared in the air in holographic form. So many views to one single floor, nothing could possibly hide from his eyes, all 50 floors. He saw a view that had people in cloaks walking, and then he pointed to it. That one. The hologram came closer and became bigger. The cloaked people were about 100, all armed, and they looked strong at the very least. "So you all are the ones that caused all this havoc," Silva said. He looked up at the guardians and spoke. "These people have genuinely made me angry. They trapped my town and killed several of the adventurers from my town. I don't know what they want in this labyrinth, but I want them to get one thing for sure: pain, suffering, and torture. I want all 100 of them to feel despair, and I want their leaders to all beg for death but not get it. So I'm asking all of you for the help I need to do this and to make them suffer very much," Silva said. "You don't even need to ask, my lord. We will carry out your will," Drake said. "I hope I'll get a reward after this," Jade said and licked her lips, sending chills up Silva's spine. "Yes, anything that I can give, as long as it doesn't require my body, just for safety," Silva said. She frowned and stuck out her tongue. So she wanted my body. Scary, Silva thought. "If I may ask, am I allowed to torture them how I want?" Lily suddenly asked. The expressions of all the guardians turned to dread, even Elsa let out a nervous chuckle. "Sorry, there was a mistake some chapters back. Maru the Guardian is not an orc, he is an ogre." Silva sat on the throne watching the group of 100 cloaked men walk through the labyrinth. He observed them closely. They had many powerful members that handled the labyrinth monsters, taking little time to take them out easily until they reached the 6th floor. As soon as they got there, Silva initiated the plan. "Celix, lead your arachnids to the 6th floor. I want you to start by causing disarray in their force. Ensure that you take enough so they can't fight. Also, you'll be there, but not to engage, just to use your powerful aura to cause them fear. I want them to scatter in all directions. That way, we can start the real hunt, one by one," Silva said. Celix bowed her head and teleported from the hall, and so the game began. Underscore 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 underscore. The cloaked men walked through the 6th floor unhindered, like a powerful wave wiping out everything in their path. But suddenly, the man at the front raised his hand, signaling them to stop. He tried to peer farther into the darkness. And as he did, the darkness stared back. Several glowing red eyes, too numerous to count, appeared. They started hearing the crackling of hard endoskeleton legs on the rocky floors heading their way. It sounded like an army in heavy boots. Finally, the spiders, half the size of humans, appeared, with some far bigger than that as well. Their number was in the hundreds, about 200 of them, all there, ready to tear this group of 100 limb from limb. To top it off, Celix, who was at the back, decided to release her aura for a bit. It was like a mad wave that washed over the cloaked people. It poured fear directly into their souls, weakening their resolve to fight the arachnids. They all turned tail and started running while the arachnids gave chase. Only 5 could stand, and they yelled at the others to maintain formation, but the others were too far gone in fear to listen. These 5 who stood were the leaders of the group, but it was still evident they were scared as their bodies kept trembling. But since they didn't run, Celix ordered them to be brought in, all 5 of them. The arachnids swarmed them, and even though the men fought as if their lives depended on it, they were outnumbered 10-1. There was no winning. The 5 were all dragged into the darkness, while the remaining arachnids gave chase to those who had fled earlier. The master knew this would disrupt them. Just putting fear in their hearts has thrown their entire formation into shambles, Celix said, looking at the men getting dragged away. I have a feeling the master will give them to Lily for questioning, Silva said. The thought of Lily torturing the men gave Celix chills. Underscore 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 underscore. Celix appeared in the hall again, with all 5 men behind her. They had been tied up with spider webs, so thick and tight they had trouble breathing. Silva looked at them and tried to sense the unique energy he had felt from the first cloaked men, but none of the 5 here were the right person. So he didn't come. He must have sent these ones here, Silva thought. He got up from the throne and walked over to the 5 of them. I'll try my best to save you from the pain that will come if you refuse, so I'll ask this once, tell me the details of your plan and all about your organization, Silva said. He told Celix to remove the webs covering their mouths. She did as instructed. But as soon as she did, they all started chanting something at the same time. Celix quickly covered their mouths again. What were they saying? Silva asked. I don't know, but as soon as they started chanting, their mana began gathering at their core. It's probably a self-destruct spell of some sort, Celix explained. So I take it they don't want to tell us anything, then, Silva said, frowning at them. It's your fault for what's about to happen. Don't blame me, blame yourselves, Silva said and then looked at Lily. I want to see your torture abilities that everyone here is afraid of. We have to get the truth out of them, even if it means breaking their spirits and souls, Silva said. Lily nodded, grabbing 2 of the men while Silva took the other 3. Watch over the remaining people who scattered, Elsa. When I come back, we can continue having fun with them, Silva said and headed out of the hall following Lily. Do you think the master will be able to stomach what he'll see during Lily's torture session? Jade came close to Elsa and asked. Don't worry. Father has the mental fortitude of the first dark dragon. He won't be fazed by this, Elsa said, assuring them. She still had her doubts in mind because Lily had a level of brutality that no one else could reach. Silva and Lily walked through the hallway as she led him to her torture chamber. Master Silva, I have something to tell you, Lily said. Yeah. What is it? Silva asked. Well, my fairy power is called foresight, the ability to predict the future. Because of my mana, I can see futures up to tens of years ahead. The issue with my ability is that the farther into the future I look, the more parallels are born, she said. Parallels? What are those? He asked. Nothing is ever definite in the future. Parallels are other paths that can be taken. There are an infinite number of parallels, and the farther you look into the future, the more parallels are born, she said. She glanced at Silva before she continued. It seemed there was something she was leading to with this discussion. These parallels are all things that can happen. One of them will happen, but the probability of any one happening is equal across the board. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I looked into your future. Basically I used my foresight on you, seeing some years into the future. There were over 100 paths that you could take, but there was something similar about them. In most of them, you destroy the world and then end up dead, killed by someone you love. I've tried to get a clearer picture of what I'm seeing, but there is a force blurring out some details. In most of the futures I see, you become a terrifying dragon, you rip through the planet and destroy all. The Guardians fought by your side and all died, even Lady Elsa. We all fought and died for you, but in the end, you let someone you love end your life. That is why I want to make this clear to you right now. If you want to lead us, then lead us without emotions, cast aside all those feelings, because I refuse to die for someone who will waver from his course after others have sacrificed for him. After we die, after we give our lives, the least you can do is carry out the course that killed us. I may not be able to see the details of the future, but I hope that you will listen to what I have said. Lily finished what she had to say and looked forward. Silva paused. He stared at Lily's back as she walked. All sorts of thoughts filled his mind. This was news on a whole different level. What would make him destroy the world? What would make him risk the lives of all the guardians and still die in the end? And who was the loved one that killed him? Question upon question filled his mind, but he decided he would not overthink it. There was no point in beating himself over what he barely understood. He carried the men and followed Lily, but as he was about to enter the torture room she went into, a message came through the system. Congratulations on getting some information toward the task given to you by the goddess Ophelia. You are on the right path to understanding your function. 1000 EXP, 500 SP. Silva was happy after seeing this. It meant all the things that he had been doing so far were not off track. He had finally made progress as to why the goddess sent him. With a smile on his face, he walked into the torture room, but that smile immediately changed into shock. The walls were filled with all sorts of blades and torture equipment. There were also shelves with bottles of chemicals and lots more. Lily snapped her fingers and the men all started floating. They got suspended mid-air, even the ones that Silva was holding not too long ago. Let's get started, she said in a calm, clean voice. One of the men floated down to her side. She undid the spider webs but suppressed the man's ability to speak completely. Master, do you know what happens when two conflicting mana meet in the mana vein of a being? Lily asked. No, not at all. I hardly know about mana veins in the first place, Silva responded. Then I'll teach you as we go along, she said and ripped the clothes off the man, leaving him completely naked. Mana veins are what carry mana around the body of a being. Your veins develop after your mana core is fully established. The mana that you absorb and also generate is fixed to match your own mana. Even in the case of mana deficiency, you have to slowly digest it into the core and then let the core charge it up. But when the mana is directly infused into the veins, it collides with the mana of the person and causes unimaginable pain. This is also amplified when the person has a very high mana capacity. I noticed that this particular man has the highest mana capacity, so I decided to try this method on him. Now that's not all. What I explained to you is what happens when I infuse human mana, but fairies tend to have one of the most potent mana. And then there is me, who even among fairies still has mana potency out of their league. What will happen if it is my fully potent mana that this man gets? She asked and then infused her mana into the man. Right after, the man's veins bulged, his body trembled, his eyes went blood red, and his skin turned a deathly purple color. Arghara. His screams echoed through the room. He shook violently in pain, but she used magic to restrict the space around him, so as he forcefully shook in pain, he was cracking the space and it was ripping his body all around. Still, his voice didn't come down. He yelled and yelled, writhing in pain. His blood poured from all the wounds, pooling on the ground. Black, thick blood seeped out of his mouth, nose, and eyes. Even the pores of his skin started bleeding. He shook and screamed until his voice sounded like a wild goat. A puddle of blood and vomit formed under him. He even pissed and shat himself right on the spot. Silva watched this horrendous scene, amazed by how brutal and ruthless this cute-looking fairy girl was. Even with all the pain that this man was going through, not once did her face flinch. There was only a slight smile on her face that had been there since the beginning. She finally stopped infusing, giving the man a moment of peace, but at this point, he started to look more dead than alive. You see, Master, when the mana infused is as potent as mine, the pain caused can break the mind in seconds, Lily said.